What's up guys, Lvladen here, and today I'm coming at you with a 11.0.7 Ret Paladin PvP guide. Now, as per usual, we're going to start the guide off with the talents, and I actually want to run through them as fast as I can because not much has changed from 11.0.5. Alright, so my go-to build right here, and I'll leave all the talent imports in the description of the video. This is it right here. We have pretty much one or two flex points with this build in the Paladin side here. The main flex point being Holy Reprieve. If you are playing with a Holy Paladin on your team, it is a good idea to take Holy Reprieve. If you do not have a Holy Paladin on your team in Arena, then you can flex this point into any other point that you desire. Sometimes I'll go Consecrated Ground if I want a little bit of a extra slow chasing targets. A lot of the times I'll just take 2/2 Vengeful Wrath right here, and this will be my default build. Sometimes I'll take a point out of Eye for an Eye if I don't need Eye for an Eye because there's no physical damage dealers on the other team, and then I'll put it up in Holy Reprieve. But this last point here is just kind of a flex point. You put it wherever it's really needed, and your default build will look somewhat similar to this with that last point being flexed around. On the Retribution side of the tree here, not much has changed as well. The only difference between the Ret side when you're playing Templar versus when you're playing Herald of the Sun is this one point right here. So if you are playing Templar, you're going to have 2/2 Zealot's Fervor. This is to work hand in hand with Crusading Strikes, extending your Shake the Heavens with this talent right here called Higher Calling. If you are playing Herald of the Sun, you're going to take 1 point out of Zealot's Fervor and you're going to put it in Burning Crusade for the 5% more damage on your radiant damage, aka your dots. Now, some Templar players play Burning Crusade because of the 5% damage increase on Wake of Ashes. I actually don't think it's worth. The benefits of Zealot's Fervor, especially if you have melee uptime, outweigh the 5% damage on Wake of Ashes, in my opinion. This also benefits of Dusk and Dawn, even though it takes more than 2 hits. I believe it's 2 hits to generate a holy power. It still is proccing your of Dusk and Dawn faster and extending your Higher Calling, and it's just, it's a little bit of extra pad damage. So that's the main difference between the talent setups right here. Now, if we go to Herald of the Sun, and I guess I'll talk about Templar real quick. You want to take Zealous Vindication and Sanctification, and then this last choice node right here. This is kind of a flex point. I like Unrelenting Charger. It's pretty nice to get out of the gate early in a BG Blitz. But Bonds of Fellowship is definitely okay in Arena. And then to Herald of the Sun very, very quickly here. A little bit. Oh, looks like I was playing. I was playing a slightly different build here. And I'll briefly talk about these 2 talent points real quick. So if you are sitting a node at a base, you can take Stoicism. Stoicism, it's not super necessary. It's nerfed in PvP in half, so it's only 10% reduction. So really, it's not doing too much for you. I think I was just messing around with this at the time. Yeah, not a huge deal. Doesn't matter too much. When it comes to the Herald of the Sun talents, you take Gleaming Rays, you take Illumine, and you take Blessing of Anji, and that's pretty much it. Very straightforward, very easy talent setup. No other flex talent points here. If you remember, I used to take Templar Strikes in the past couple patches. Unfortunately, around 11.0.5, they did nerf Templar Strikes via bug fix, so it does far less damage than it used to. So I no longer play Templar Strikes. Maybe in the future they will patch this or buff this or something and it'll be better. All right, for PvP talents, also pretty straightforward. You're pretty much always going to take Blessing of Sanctuary. You're always going to take Or Reckoning, and you can flex the last talent point here, Luminescence, into Blessing of Spellwarding against double casters, or sometimes, for example, if I'm in a solo shuffle and I'm fighting Frost Mage, BM Hunter, Healer, both BM Hunters and Frost Mages have purges for Blessing of Protection, so that's an example where I will take Spellwarding over Blessing of Protection, because I'll at least gain a benefit from one of my bobs that way. You can also take Searing Glare. I commonly take Searing Glare on node maps, so Arathi Basin, Eye of the Storm, Gilneas, Deepwind Gorge, I'm running Searing Glare there. Pretty much all other times I don't really run Searing Glare too often. I'm not one of the Reds that play Searing Glare in Solo Shuffle. Some do. And then outside of that, you really don't have any other good PvP talents. Ultimate Retribution is really bad. Lawbringer is really bad. Hollowed Ground, we no longer really have an active... we don't have an active Consecration, so we can't really use this. Spreading the Word, pretty bad. Spellbreaker, not needed yet. When they do remove Aura of Reckoning and Luminescence, I think I might pick up Spellbreaker, but currently I don't really have room for it. But yeah, that's about it for talents. How do we do? 5 minutes, not terrible, not terrible. All right, again, all of my builds that I use will be in the description of the video. All right, for the next part of the video, I'm going to talk about stats and gear. Just to briefly go over my own gear, I run the 2-set primarily in all of my games. I take the Forged Gladiator's Plate Helm with a Masterful Sapphire. I take the Forged Gladiator's Amulet with 2 Masterful Sapphires socketed. I have the shoulder piece from the set bonus. I have a, let's see here, I typically run a Versatility Haste Cloak with Enchanted Bleaching Fangs. I run the set piece chest with Crystalline Radiance. I run a Forged Gladiator's Plate Wrist Guards with the Speed Enchant and the Enduring Bloodstone for the PvP gem. I take Algari Competitor's Greatsword with the Ascendance Embellishment in Arena, and I take the Forged Gladiator's Great Axe in BG Blitz and Soul Shuffle, and I'll briefly go over why at the end. And then I take the Forged Gladiator's Plate Handguards with Mastery Versatility, a Forged Gladiator's Plate Girdle with the Versatile Onyx on the gem socket. I take the Conquest Legs with Versatility Mastery and the Stormbound enchant, I believe, which is Strength and Stamina. I take the Algari Competitor's Plate Sabatons with the Nerubian Embellishment. And then I run the double Versatility Mastery Rings, and with my Conquest one, I take Radiant Versatility and 2 Masterful Sapphires. And then on the second ring, I craft this ring here with Curse Mastery Enchant and 2 Versatile Onyxes. And then I run the Medallion and the Alacrity Trinkets. Now, briefly, I'm going to show you guys how to get all this gear, but briefly before, I'd like to talk about the embellishments. So in Arena, I'll run the embellishments for Ascendance, and the reason behind this is you're in combat longer, so you can stack the buff, and it's of higher value. In BG Blitz and Solo Shuffle, I'll run the Focusing Lens embellishment, which you can get from the crafting vendor, and I'll show you guys in a moment. And my setup will look like this. So exact same stat percentages, just a different embellishment. Now, to briefly show you guys why I do take one piece of optional gear that has haste on it, I have this add-on here called Deja Stats, and it shows the global cooldown. And there's this particular talent for Templar called Undisputed Ruling. With Undisputed Ruling and 10 stacks of Crusade, you can get your global cooldown to exactly 1.01 seconds, which is cool. I like it. And I don't think haste is really that great of a stat for Ret right now for damage. But just having a solid 1 second on your global cooldown whenever you have your 10 stacks of Crusade plus your Undisputed Ruling feels really nice. And I used to really like haste as an enchant. I'll show you guys here. I'm just gonna get some holy power real quick. Get my stacks up here. And as you guys can see, 10 stacks of Crusade, 1.01 seconds. It feels pretty good. And in PvP, you are quite frequently proccing your 10 stacks of Crusade. You're able to extend it much more frequently due to Aura Reckoning. So you have much higher uptime on that 1.01 second GCD. So yeah, that is why I run Forged Gladiator's Drape rather than the Shawl all the time. Sometimes I'll swap it back and forth. I'll play the Shawl if I'm running Herald. All right, so let me show you guys how gearing works really quick. So in order to gear in PvP in this game, if you're a new player, I would definitely recommend turning on war mode and doing a bunch of world quests so you can get bloody tokens. You can also pick up the quests at Ruffius right here, and this will give you 1,000 bloody tokens for the weekly quest, and you can use those to get bloody token gear that's only 3 item levels lower than conquest gear. It's going to give you a nice really big heads up in PvP without ever really having to do any PvP. That vendor is right here. For the veterans out there, you know, you get most of your gear from the conquest vendor, and then you also buy Forged Gladiators heraldries to craft PvP gear, to craft your Algari crafted gear. Gem sockets come from this guy right here, Vicious Bloodstones. You can buy these off the auction house if you don't have the honor. And the Forged Jeweler settings you use to apply to your gear to craft or create the gem sockets. Now, when you buy conquest gear, you can take it over to the converter down here, Catalyst, which appears, I'm lagging a little bit, right here. And you can convert the conquest gear to the tier set gear right here. Pretty cool. And then your crafted gear comes from up here. So remember when I spoke about the heraldries, you'll buy the heraldries and you'll bring them over to the crafting order station right here. You go to armor, plate, whatever you want to craft. For example, let's craft some feet here. You're going to press search. You're going to click on the Algari Competitors gear. Now this Algari Competitors gear is located on every single slot here for the gear. You can always find the Algari Competitors, and that is what you put the heraldries in. You're going to toss in 4 heraldries. You're going to add in any of the reagents required. You can get these off the auction house or the open world. The optional reagents here are your embellishments. So Elemental Focusing Lens. You can craft competitors gear without embellishments, by the way, but you will need to put a stat on them. So you buy a Elemental Focusing Lens off the auction house, throw it on here. Buy a missive, which you can customize your stats, throw it on here, and then boom, you craft. The tier, the quality of the material does not matter for PvP. As long as you're putting in a heraldry at the epic level, it will craft a 639 piece of gear. The exceptions to this are your enchants and your gems. You want tier 3, you want max tier enchants and gems. Outside of that, does not matter for the crafted gear itself. All right, I hope that was helpful when talking about the gear. There are a bunch of different stat setups that I've tested and tried out and played throughout my time experimenting and figuring out what's best. You could run a 6%, 42% mastery, 26% versatility 4-set setup. That's viable. I personally have not been running the 4-set. I play a stat setup where I'm perfectly at 30% versatility right here and about 41% mastery, along with, I think I have some sort of buff here, along with 5% haste, 9% crit. This is my favorite setup. I get to the stat DR on versatility at 30%. You start diminishing returns, and then I throw all my bonus stats into mastery, and it looks like I have a little bit more mastery whenever I have a different stat setup on. Let's show you guys real quick right here. Whenever I run the Ascendant's Greatsword. So yeah, there are several different stat setups for Ret that work, that are viable, that are good. I did try out crit, was not a fan. I got all the way up to 33% crit. Nope, not for PvP. That's the only thing that I really don't recommend running. You could run a super high mastery build. I had a mastery build where I got to 51% mastery. You can get higher. It doesn't really matter that much. But I would recommend either playing the stat setup that I have right here, or you can go ahead and try out the 4-set, see if it's for you. It does decent damage. The only thing that you have to be mindful of is if you are playing the 4-set, you're doing a little bit less damage outside of that burst window, that 8 seconds that you have the damage proc for after Wake of Ashes. And it's only 5%. It's nerfed in PvP to 5%. So 5% for 8 seconds is not too much. But again, it's decent on Templar. wouldn't necessarily run it on Herald of the Sun. All right, I've talked about gear long enough. I don't think I missed anything. If I did, please let me know in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer questions. All right, the next thing I'm going to go over is the rotation. All right, Ret has a fairly simple rotation, but there are a couple things that you want to make note of during your burst windows. You have a number of modifiers for your Holy Power spenders that you want to keep track of. So you have your Greater Judgment, which increases the damage of your Holy Power spenders. You have your Final Reckoning, which increases the damage of your Holy Power spenders. You have Of Dusk and Dawn, which once again increases the damage of your Holy Power spenders. You have your Crusade and your Crusade stacks, which once again increases your overall damage. And then you have your Holy Flames, which increases your overall damage. So there are a lot of modifiers for Ret Paladin to keep track of if you want to absolutely squeeze out all the damage that you can in your burst windows. More oftentimes than not, it's okay to just send them without the setup. But for Templar specifically, I would definitely start keeping in mind the Of Dusk and Dawn stacks, because it really does play into how hard your Hammer of Light hits overall. I do have a tracker for my Of Dusk and Dawn stacks. So in my typical opener here, what I like doing is, as I'm running at the target, I'm going to throw a Judgment and a Blade of Justice at the target, which is going to give us the first 2 Holy Power Generator abilities towards Of Dusk and Dawn, your Blessing of Dawn buff. And then I'm going to Final Reckoning the target. And then I'm going to Wake of Ashes. And Wake of Ashes gives me that 3rd stack of a Holy Power Generator to give us 1 stack of Blessing of Dawn. Immediately after this, I'm going to push Hammer of Light, which is then going to be empowered by Greater Judgment, Final Reckoning, Holy Flames, and 1 stack of Dusk and Dawn. This is the fastest that you can get out a quick burst window for your Hammer of Light. Now, some of you might be curious why I'm not stacking up my Crusade a little bit more and taking advantage of the Empyrean Legacy triggered by the Judgment on the first global of the ability. People are looking to stop your burst window as soon as possible, and Hammer of Light expires. Also, if you are pushing your Final Verdict, you're going to clear the stack of Blessing of Dawn, and if you then generate another 5 Holy Power with your Divine Toll following this, you're going to do less damage overall with your max stack Crusade, with your 9 stack of Crusade, than you would if you just sent it on an Of Dusk and Dawn, Blessing of Dawn proc. So that is why I do what I do. So let me show you guys an example of the Templar burst rotation right here. So we're going to Judge, Blade of Justice, Final Reckoning, Wake, Hammer of Light, Divine Toll, Final Verdict, Hammer of Wrath, Final Verdict, Hammer of Wrath, Blade of Justice, Final Verdict, Judgment, Final Verdict, Hammer of Wrath, Final Verdict, got a proc, Final Verdict, Blade of Justice, as the expurgation's falling, Hammer of Wrath, and so on and so forth. And a couple things that you want to keep in mind with the Templar rotation itself. After you push your Hammer of Light, you get your Shake the Heavens buff. Now, Shake the Heavens is super important. It gives you stacks of Light's Deliverance, and it also deals a pretty decent amount of damage as long as the hammers are striking your target. You can extend this buff with Crusading Strikes, so it's not every Crusading Strike that extends the Shake the Heavens buff. I believe 2 need to go off for a half-second duration increase. If you're taking Templar Strikes, each Templar Strike extends it by 1 second. With Crusading Strikes, it's every other Crusading Strike extends it by half a second, I believe. When you have your Shake the Heavens up, your Final Verdict will call down an additional Empyrean Hammer. Now, there is an eternal cooldown on the Empyrean Hammers. So if, for example, you have Shake the Heavens up and you have a proc of Divine Purpose and you have you're about to push Final Verdict, back-to-back Final Verdicting will not actually trigger that second double hammer fall. Little unfortunate, but this is being fixed next patch. This is actually being fixed next patch, which is really nice. And then outside of that, your standard Ret rotation is pretty simple. You're going to be using as many Final Verdicts into Greater Judgment windows as you can while trying to maintain your Holy Flames debuff on the target while not overcapping holy power. Sounds a little bit... It sounds easy, and it is easy. You see yourself at 5 holy power, push the final verdict no matter what. So say I'm in here. Oh no, I'm at 5 holy power. Push 3 holy power. Or I'm like this, say I'm like this. There's no greater judgment on the target, and I have a final verdict. Just send the final verdict, then judgment, then final verdict. You don't have to think about it that much. Literally just spam your buttons without trying to overcap on holy power, and making sure as you're keeping your judgment on cooldown as best you can, you're keeping your Blade of Justice up on the target as best you can, and you're keeping your Hammer of Wrath on cooldown. As long as you're getting procs, you're going to be fine. The main window that you want to pay attention to is that burst window I talked about. Now we have one more scenario to go over, which is your at 50 stacks of Light's Deliverance, and you have your Wake of Ash off cooldown. Now this is my favorite part of Templar. You can do an Omega damage, big, huge. You're gonna melt someone. Like, the burst is absolutely nuts. And this is something that you need to watch for. You don't always run into this scenario, and it's not necessarily worth saving up for all the time. But if you do ever come across this window, it's something that you want to pay attention to. So you do this exact same rotation as you would with the burst window, which is Judge, Blade of Justice, Final Reckoning, Wake of Ashes, double Hammer of Light, 1, and then 2. Divine Toll, Final Verdict. The Hammer of Lights are... There's a delay in the Hammer of Light. So you might feel like you push the Hammer of Light, but it's going to take like an extra half second for the Light's Deliverance stacks to kick in and actually generate that other Hammer of Light. So you have to be paying attention to the Wake of Ash Hammer of Light, because that one is the one that you spend first. You spend the 5 holy power one first, I believe. There's also something that you have to watch for, which is there is a bug with Templar. If you Wake of Ashes and you have your 5 holy power and you're sitting on this Hammer of Light, if a target moves out of your line of sight as Hammer of Light is going off, or they move out of range as Hammer of Light is going off, it will consume all the holy power and not go off. So you'll have to generate the holy power again and then push the button again. So that does suck a little bit, but it is just another thing to watch for. All right, I'll briefly go over the Herald rotation. It's very simple. All right, so for the Herald of the Sun rotation, very, very simple. Just a couple things to note. You really want to make sure you are hitting the target that you want to kill with your Wake of Ashes because of the Burn to Ash debuff here. This is going to greatly increase your Blessing of... I'm sorry. Yes, your Dawn Lights. Your Dawn Lights. That's what I'm talking about. All right, so it's also okay to delay your Final Reckoning with Herald of the Sun. You don't have to do that setup of Judgment into Blade of Justice into Final Reckoning. It's just with Herald, it's more important to just get your damage rolling ASAP. So I'll do something like I'm running over to the target, I Judgment, I Wake of Ashes, Final Verdict, Final Verdict, Final Verdict, Divine Toll, Final Reckoning, Final Verdict, Blessing of Anshi, Final Verdict, Blade of Justice, Final Verdict, Blessing of Anshi, Final Verdict, Judgment, Final Verdict, Blade of Justice, Final Verdict. It's very, very, very simple. And the reason that you're prioritizing your Final Verdict so much, and it's not like you don't with the other specs, is you are fishing. You are fishing your heart out for procs of wings from Radiant Glory, because those procs are going to give you more Dawn Lights. And more Dawn Lights is more damage. So it's really spammy rotation with Herald of the Sun, and very, very little setup, very little thinking. Just spam your buttons and you're gonna do your damage. And look how long this Dawn Light is. I have over 30 seconds of Dawn Light on this guy, and my Wake of Ashes is coming off cooldown right now. So yeah, just spam your buttons, get in there, take advantage of the Blessing of Anshis, and yeah, you'll have success. My Hammer of Wrath damage is way higher than it would be in a PvP setting, because for some reason, whatever reason, on the target dummy, the PvP target dummy, the nerf to Blessing of Anshi is not factored in. So you're getting full value, 200% damage increase, Hammer of Wrath on the PvP dummy. It is not this high in PvP. All right. Yep, that's about it for Herald of the Sun rotation. Very simple. All right, we have the long-awaited add-on section of the video. All right, so I'm going to go in real quick. Add-ons. I run Battleground enemies. This displays enemies in Battlegrounds. Pretty simple. Better Blizz Plates /BBP. This add-on allows me to go to advanced settings real quick. This allows me to set the class indicator for enemies and friendlies to show the specialization that they're playing. And then also, if you guys really like it, I know some people do, you can put a healer indicator down and then you just check off enemies only. That's really all I use PvP for. Other add-ons here, I have big debuffs, so /big debuffs. This is the GOAT add-on for sure. So with raid frames, this is what my setup looks like. This will show all the CC on your healer and whatnot, so you can know when to sank and if your healer is controlled by something. With nameplates, this is on the enemy nameplates. You can show crowd controls, you can show defensives, offensives, whatever you want, if they're interrupted, if they're rooted. This is big debuffs. I love big debuffs. If I had to recommend any add-on for you guys to get, it would be this one here. After that, I have buff overlay, and I only use buff overlay for one thing. So I'm going to type /buff overlay. And with this, you're going to probably come up here. You can click on spells. And then I disable all spells for every class aside from forbearance. And I also push off glow. So this allows me to track forbearance on the raid frames. So I can know if I can lay on hands or bop someone. What's next here? We have capping. Capping just shows the base timers when they're being capped in a battleground. Deja character stats. This shows me the global cooldown. You can kind of track whatever you want in this by clicking on the unlock DCS option here or lock DCS. You check off whatever you want to see. And then we have details. Details that shows you your damage and healing done. You can track a bunch of things in here. It's this add-on right here. Doom cooldown pulse. This shows my big cooldowns coming off CD in the middle of the screen. A lot of people ask about this. It's great. It's cool. I like it. Gladius X. I don't really use Gladius X. You can use Gladius X if you want. I use S Arena updated 2 by Sammers. I'll show you guys what that looks like real quick. So /S Arena. I have the Zaryu layout customized a little bit with the arena frames, spec icon scale. I just changed around things a little bit, the positioning. So you guys can choose the Zaryu setting if you want, and then choose whatever positions that you want. I'll show you what it looks like here. It just looks like this. It's pretty cool. /S Arena, and then we hide. All right, back to add-ons here. Scrolling back up, we have Omni Bar and Omni CD. Omni Bar, I'll show you guys what this is, /Omni Bar. And then test all. This just displays all the cooldowns that I really want to track in the upper left-hand corner whenever they're popped by an enemy. It does not look like this big conglomerated mess because usually in arena you're fighting far fewer, and you can track them as you would like. Yeah, it's a pretty cool add-on. Again, if you wanted to adjust what you see and don't see, you just go from the settings, you click on spells, and then you click on the classes, and you can check off or uncheck off whatever spells that you deem important and necessary and whatnot. I don't really use Omni Bar as much as I use my other add-ons. Honestly, I don't look up there as frequently as I should. I also use Omni CD. So you open this by typing /Omni CD. And when you get in here, you're going to click on arenas, or actually with battlegrounds, I disable it. So I don't want to see this in the open world. But in arena, I do. So you're going to click on arena, and then you're going to go to offensive, defensive, and utility for all the classes. And you're going to click off whatever you deem necessary. It's going to be different for everyone. At minimum, I like having the defensives displayed for other classes. So like for mage, I would track Ice Block, Cold Snap, Cauterize, Alter Time. For Hunter, I would track pretty much everything. His wall, turtle, heal, pet sack, stuff like that. And with utility, you can track interrupts, you can track CCs. Not everything is important tracking, but you know, it is what it is. You can track whatever you want. I think this is a great add-on, and it's also very easy to use and set up. Comes with good defaults as well. What do we have after this? Tell Me When. Tell Me When is the poor man's Weakauras. So TM/TMW to open, and it opens up a couple of bars that look like this. If you right-click the bar, you can click up here and choose what to track. So for example, I track my Shake the Heavens using Tell Me When. So I would click the drop down, click buff/debuff, and then I would type Shake the Heavens. Who'd watch? Me, the player. So I click off player. It's a buff. And then if present, it's going to be 100% displayed. And if not active, it's going to be hidden. And it's pretty cool. You can also set up spells to track in the middle as well if you don't want to do it on a hotbar. I just like my Wake of Ashes being right next to my Shake the Heavens buff and in the middle of my screen. So if you want to set it up like this, just make sure that you also show timer text and show timer. It will be a little bit helpful. So /TMW to get rid of. I really don't use all my Tell Me Whens and whatnot for this particular red here. What else do we have? Trophy GCD. This just displays my globals used for you guys on the left side of the screen over here. And then I have true stat values, which shows me the diminishing returns on my stats here. So that is displayed also under the character frame right here. Oh boy. All right, here we go. Let's talk about Weakauras. All right, one of the reasons I don't like going over Weakauras is because I have a bunch of unused Weakauras and it just looks like a big, huge, disgusting, overwhelming mess. So I'm going to show you guys briefly the big things that you're going to need from my Weakauras here, which I'll also drop in the description of the video. You're going to want to pick up a Mez Weakaura package. It's probably updated for the War Within, but I just have the old one here. If you want to copy down the link right here. Mez Weakaura package. This just shows when cooldowns are used on your screen. There's a healer CD package as well. Information, URL right here. This will display Ironbark, Pain Sub, Guardian, just kind of some couple of important cooldowns. Outside of that, I really don't use Weakauras for anything else. You don't really need to track your Blessing of Banshee anymore because I'm not running Templar Strikes, so you just send it on cooldown. Same with the Templar Strikes Weakaura. I don't play Templar Strikes anymore, but here it is if you guys are interested. And then this Ret specific package right here is also not going to matter too much because I'm not running Execution Sentence ever. You can use this one. I'll show the information right here, URL. You can use this one to track your Empyrean Legacy if you want, and your Aura Reckoning stats, and then you can mess around with the positions and settings. All right, so the way that Weakauras work, by the way, is you're going to just go to the URL, and you're going to click import, or like copy for import, and then you would go up to, you click the import button, and then you just paste the text from the URL in here. Not the URL itself, but the copy link that will be on the URL itself. And then you copy, and then you import, and then boom, the Weakaura is here. I have a bunch of Weakauras for other specs. Do not pay attention to them. I will drop a link in the description to the important packages that you guys are looking for. All right, so that's about it for add-ons. Probably, I think that's it for the guide as well. Briefly, just to talk about comps and how Ret is in the overall meta. You can play Ret Warrior. You can play Ret BM Hunter. Your best healers are probably a Mistweaver Monk right now, maybe a Discipline Priest, maybe a Holy Paladin. I primarily play with a Mistweaver Monk. There are a handful of comps out there. Like I think Vanguards is playing Ret DH Arsham, which sounds pretty bad, but I think they're doing pretty well, but they're also a bunch of rank ones. So if I was to recommend a comp to the average player, I would definitely check out BM Hunter, Ret Paladin, Discipline Priest right now. That's your best bet. Your second best bet is probably Ret Paladin, Fury Warrior, Mistweaver Monk. And then outside of that, everything else is probably like B or C tier comp. And, you know, you're just kind of struggling to get by. In terms of Ret's viability, it is in Solo Shuffle. It's probably A tier in Solo Shuffle. Battleground Blitz, it's probably A tier. 2v2, it is D tier. Absolutely blows in 2v2. You don't have a Mortal Strike. You don't have as high damage of classes that actually do have Mortal Strikes, which is crazy. And double DPS is kind of a dead thing. And then in threes, it's probably a B tier spec. Right now, we're actually sitting pretty decently high in Solo Shuffle. We're number 16 in NA. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Ret definitely has some decent lobbies, and it also has some poor lobbies. And yeah, that is about it, guys. If I missed anything, please let me know in the comments below. I hope you all enjoyed this guide. Happy New Year. If you did enjoy this guide, feel free to throw me some support, like, subscribe, comment, follow me on Twitch, Twitter, and then also, you know, toss a Twitch sub or Twitch Prime, you know, whatever you're feeling generous. I appreciate it. And I will see all of you next time. Peace.